Now, they had 5 pieces of debris floating around close to the shuttle today. NASA wanted to make sure the shuttle was intact and ready to withstand the long and dangerous journey back home. NASA says nothing stood out and was not out of place during the 4.5-hour inspection of the shuttle, but mission managers did an additional survey of the shuttle's protective heat shield anyway. The surveys were initially sparked by a mysterious object floating under the spacecraft yesterday. It was detected shortly after a routine check of the shuttle's steering jets. Now, since Columbia, NASA developed several tools and procedures to safeguard the shuttle while in space. NASA admits they may never know exactly what the unknown objects are, but confirms the shuttle is ready to handle the 3,000-degree temperatures it will meet as it re-enters the Earth's atmosphere.
Over the years, we have chased many of these things, maybe not with the visibility that this one has gotten, and rarely, if ever, been able to pinpoint exactly where they came from, and always finding out that it didn't pose us any hazard.
Roger. This is Friendship 7. All these little particles, there are thousands of them, and they're not coming from the capsule. They're something that's already up here. Because they're all over the sky, way out. I can see them as far as I can see in each direction almost. They lit up like they're luminescent. I never saw anything like it. They're around the little, they're coming by the capsule, and they look like little stars, a whole shower of them coming by. They swirl around the capsule and go in front of the window, and they're all brilliantly lighted. They probably average maybe 7 or 8 feet apart, but I can see them all down below me also. Can you hear any injuries from the capsule? Negative. They're very slow. They're not going away from me more than maybe 3 or 4 miles per hour. They're going at the same speed I am, approximately. They're only very slightly under my speed. Over. They do have a different motion, though, from me, because they swirl around the capsule and then depart back the way that I am looking. Are you receiving? Over. There are literally thousands of them. This is Friendship 7. Am I in contact with anyone? Over. It was brilliant in the scope, a brilliant red as it approached the horizon and came up. And just as I looked back up out the window, I had literally thousands of small luminous particles swirling around the capsule and going away from me at maybe 3 to 5 miles per hour. Now that I am out in the bright sun, they seem to have disappeared. It was just as the sun was coming up. I can still see just a few of them now, even though the sun is up some 20 degrees above the horizon. I still have some of these little particles coming around the capsule occasionally here. I can see them against the dark sky even on the day side. Over. Roger, understand. Friendship 7, join us. If you have a chance, could you give us a blood pressure check? Roger, Friendship 7, we'll give blood pressure check. I still have some of these particles that I cannot identify coming around the capsule occasionally. Over. Just at sunrise, there were literally thousands of them. It looked like just a myriad of stars. Over. Roger, are they floating by you or floating with you? Over. Some of them float almost with me. Most of them appear to be moving at about 3 to 5 miles an hour away from me. I'm going just a little faster than they are. Over. Roger. Only really unusual thing so far beside ASCS trouble were the little particles, luminous particles around the capsule, just thousands of them, right at sunrise over the Pacific. Over. This is Friendship 7. I do not think they were from my control jets. Negative. Over.
Roger, Friendship 7. This is Canton. We have DM solid. Go ahead. Over.
Roger, this is Friendship 7, and now that sunrise is starting, I have all these little particles coming around the capsule again, just at sunrise.
Roger, Friendship 7.
I also can see the light on my on steam from the thruster when I operate it. Over. This is Friendship 7. I think I can see a little bit of steam spitting against the dark sky here occasionally from my pitched down manual thrust. Over.
Roger, Friendship 7.
This is Friendship 7. I'm trying to get some pictures of these particles that are outside here. Over.
Friendship 7, this is Canton. We also have no indication that your landing bag might be deployed. Over.
Roger. Did someone report landing bag could be down? Over.
Negative. We had a request to monitor this and to ask you if you heard any flapping when you had high capsule rates.
Negative.
This was. Over.
Well, I think they probably thought these particles I saw might have come from that. But there are thousands of these things, and they go out for, it looks like miles in each direction from me, and they move by here very slowly. I saw them at the same spot on the first orbit. Over.
Roger.
Are you still seeing the particles around your capsules? Negative. I don't seem to see them around here on this side. I saw a few, just a few, just after I left Canaveral and turned around facing forward. They were coming toward me at that time. I was going, so I know that they are not coming from the capsule at all. I saw the particles in...
And Columbia Huntsville for Scott, if you haven't adjusted the 35 millimeter intervalometer yet, you could adjust that to 2 seconds. If you've already passed that step, that's no problem, and you can proceed.
Okay, we'll go to 2 seconds on the intervalometer. It's no problem. Just take a couple seconds to reset it. And is sample 7 looks like a different material than the last one?
And Columbia for Scott, that should be the same type of material.
Okay, is it thicker or is it, because it looks like it might be a little thicker?
No, it seems like it appears that way, but it should be the same thickness.
Okay, and we modified the thermocouples as you said, and we'll modify the camera settings, and it'll be a few more minutes before we're finished setting up.
Okay, copy that, Scott. That camera was something that they noticed in their last data run.
Okay, thanks. Stand by, Story. sorry about that story. The MET was 7 days, 7 hours and 40 minutes. And I'm ready to read out the inlet temps.
We are ready.
On Mike Fox 71 Echo, the inlet temp was 28.2. The outlet temp was 28.2. The lights timer was 2 hours and 7 minutes. We were on a day cycle, and the water indicator was 3 and 3, and we refilled it. On Mike Fox 71 Hotel, the inlet temp was 33.0, outlet temp was 30.4, and the light timer was 2 hours and 8 minutes on a day cycle. And the water indicator was a 2 and a 3, 2A, 3B. And we also refilled that one. Over.
Okay. Thanks very much, Mike. The reason those temperatures are so important is that they are running a controlled experiment on the ground, and they adjust those temperatures on the ground for the ones you have in flight.
Work to do today.
This is Mission Control Houston. We are using the payload bay cameras right now to hopefully catch a glimpse of the Russian space station Mir as it performs an on-orbit burn. Though it will be difficult to pick Mir out from the stars as they pass behind us, the payload bay cameras are positioned such that they're looking straight back behind the orbiter, where the Mir is flying at about 850 nautical miles behind us. The burn is expected to take place sometime in the next couple of minutes.
We have camera Charlie looking for Mir.
We're looking. No joy from here. Sorry. Hope it was a good one, though, for our friends.
Thank you, sir. We could not see it here either. We'll wait 2 or 3 more minutes till sunrise, and then at that time give you a go for KU stow.
Apparently neither crew members on board Discovery or the payload bay cameras could make out the Mir space station as it came around the horizon and performed a on-orbit burn. That's not too surprising because right now Mir is about 850 nautical miles behind Discovery.
Mir should be above the moon as you look at it.
Okay.
Our next event on NASA television will be our video highlights for flight day number 8. These video highlights, which will last about 43 minutes, will begin at 1 p.m. Central Time. In the meantime, after we wait a little bit to see if we can spot the Mir once it moves into the sun, we will be stowing the KU band antenna and thus concluding the television downlink that we expect to get from the vehicle during this mission. We're at a mission elapsed time of 7 days, 13 hours, and 17 minutes. This is Mission Control Houston. The Mir space station is now visible on the far left-hand side of the screen, about an inch from the bottom of this particular picture. And there were also a number of shooting stars in that view. The camera has now moved to a point Okay, the Mir space station is the small flashing light in the center, about an inch from
Camera Charlie on a monitor.
the left-hand side of the screen. It's slowly
Tally ho on the camera.
it is slowly moving closer to the left-hand side and is has a very light flashing to it.
We think on the middle of the screen, way to the left-hand side.
And
We've seen a lot of meteors.
the streaks that are shooting across the screen are meteorites. In other words, shooting stars.
We think you can see a flashing light just a little bit to the left of the center of the screen, very faint.
Yeah, we do see something flashing visually, but we're not sure that that might be from our own leaker.
Mirror sunrise in about a minute.
Okay.
This is Mission Control Houston. Once again, we believe we were just able to spot the Mir spacecraft as it flies about 850 nautical miles behind Discovery. The spacecraft appeared as a very small flashing light and then moved out of the picture as the camera was being moved to try to get a different picture. The one thing that we have noticed in the flight control room is that we've seen a large number of shooting stars during this 5-minute or so period when we've been watching.
Checkpoint initiates in work.
Thank you.
During this 5 or so minute period when we've been watching for Mir. This is Mission Control Houston. In just a few minutes, the crew on board Discovery will begin stowing the antenna that is used to downlink high data rate information, such as TV pictures from Discovery. That antenna is called the KU band antenna and can be seen here positioned at the forward part of the starboard side of the payload bay. That little antenna dish hangs over the side of the orbiter and tracks with the tracking data relay satellite systems as the orbiter moves around the Earth. When it is stowed, it is brought inside and tucked in the corner of the payload bay. Our next event on NASA television is our video highlights for Flight Day number 8. Originally, we were going to air that selection of video downlinked from Discovery at 1 p.m. Central Time, but now we're going to delay that by about 15 minutes.
You see them as not extraterrestrial, but actually interdimensional.
That's right, that's right. Going into this, studying this phenomenon, I was having an open mind. I was thinking spaceships, technology, other planets that they come from. But as I started watching these things over the years and studying them and actually seeing them, I'm more inclined to believe that they actually reside here. It's more interdimensional. They're, instead of extraterrestrial, it's interterrestrial, if you will. This deer here, now he's kind of looking up at a diamond spiral, okay? Now these spirals represent doorways for these beings. Now, we find spirals here on South Mountain. 20% of them are water, natural watering holes. But the majority of them here on South Mountains are doorways for these supernatural beings. Here, we have what looks like, what the Indians like to say, a lizard man, okay? And the story on these lizard men is when the Hohokam first arrived here, they didn't know how to live here in the desert. So these creatures came up out of the sand world. They looked just like us. They lost their tails, and they were able to teach the Native Americans how to live. And when they were done teaching them, they went back down into the sand world and promised to return someday. Now, some of the Native Americans here, when you ask them, because you will see that little dot in their belly. You see the dot in their stomach there? Now, some of the Native Americans will say, well, that's our spirit, and he's halfway in the rock and halfway out of the rock. He's coming out of the rock. But in my studies on watching these UFOs, I believe that that dot there is an orb. This is what we're seeing in the sky today. And actually what this orb is doing is he's transforming into a man. He's representing a man. He's actually morphing into a human. So that dot in the belly there is actually a UFO orb, and he's morphing into a man.
I had heard from sheriffs about a rancher in Montana who had gone out to go hunting, comes around a ridge, has an 8-foot tall reddish brown, primate-looking, long-haired creature standing right in front of him. Picks up a .30-06 and just fires. And the creature disappeared in a flash of light. If the Sasquatch, when a bullet is shot at it, disappears in a flash of light, then what in the world are we dealing with, and what do they want?
On the evening of October 25th, 1973, a young Pennsylvania farmer, Stephen Pulaski, and at least 15 other witnesses saw a bright object hovering over a field near them. Stephen grabbed his rifle and went to investigate. It was then that he noticed something walking along by the fence. They were hairy and long-armed, with greenish-yellow eyes, and a smell like burning rubber was present. Stephen sensed that these creatures were not friendly and fired a tracer bullet over their heads. And when they kept on coming, he fired directly at one of them. The creatures then all disappeared into the woods, and the glowing object disappeared from the field instantaneously. UFO researchers as well as a state trooper were called in to investigate. When they arrived, the people there told them that Stephen had been growling like an animal and flailing his arms. His own dog ran toward him, and Stephen attacked the dog. Stephen then collapsed, and after a time began to come to his senses. The entire group commented on the nauseating, sulfur-like odor that was present. The Amityville Horror was based on a factual account of what happened to a family in Amityville, New York. An irritating and nauseating odor seemed to accompany the presence of the ghost or spirit entity that entered there from time to time.
Собрал внушительное досье, в том числе и на людей в черном. Одного из них Владимиру Ефимовичу довелось встретить лично. Еще в доперестроечное время он ехал в поезде дальнего следования и всю ночь рассказывал попутчикам про НЛО. А на утро раздался стук в дверь.
Открыл тамбур. Передо мной стоит мужчина высокого роста, примерно 1,82 м, 1,85 м. В черном. Плащ на голове. Фуражка или шляпа черная, костюм черный, белая рубашка выглядывает.
Незнакомец имел билет в соседнее купе и явился к замороке под надуманным предлогом. Посидел, поучаствовал в общей беседе и вдруг предложил Владимиру Ефимовичу и его соседке по купе пересказать вчерашние истории про пришельцев.
Небольшой оттенок в голосе, акцент. Как будто с металлическим привкусом что-то вот такое. Думала, что розыгрыш. И вдруг он начинает слово в слово нашу беседу, как магнитофонные ленты. Этой женщине стало плохо, она с купе вылетела, сами понимаете.
Что было потом, никто не помнит. Человек в черном внезапно исчез.
Here we find what looks like a lizard guy because we have a tail here and we have his legs, and you can see that he's in the appeasement pose, much like what us sky watchers do. We look up and we're like, hey, you know, what are you? Come and see us. And here is a depiction of what looks like a worm or a creature, okay? And this is the type of stuff that we're looking for here in the Valley of the Sun. In my opinion, it's not a craft, but another life form. It's another creature. And this is actually depicting of what this Native American saw in the sky. And if you look up right over here, you can see another one there, all right? Now, I've videotaped this. I've seen that creature there Easter Sunday of 2009.
Do you have a picture of that, a video of it?
That's right. Mm-hmm. I've seen these worms in the sky here. Over here, we have a bow tie, and some of the petroglyphs here, these bow ties actually grow legs and arms and a head. And this is representing a spirit being, a UFO, if you will. On top here, you'll see that this is oriented on top, in the sky. This is one of these serpent creatures that I filmed many times here in Phoenix, Arizona, and it's up high, or it's as to say that it's been seen in the sky here. He's a very powerful entity. This is one of my favorite panels here.
While we were filming this segment, we inadvertently captured on film a spirit anomaly. Watch carefully as it appears out of nowhere and rapidly accelerates upward.
You know, studying these UFOs and watching them for many years, I've come to find out that these things like energy spots, power plants seem to be the intergalactic gas station, if you will. I noticed that these UFOs would actually hover over some electrical power plants, and sometimes they would gather up so much energy that they would start to steam. And studying this type of phenomenon, I'd come to find out that these mountains, South Mountain is one of them, was created by a fault line. And these fault lines generate a type of energy. And this would explain on the reasons why these UFOs like mountains so much, especially the ones with the fault lines, is because they're absorbing the energy that the fault lines are producing. And along with these fault lines, and some people like to call them ley lines, we find pyramids. We find Mayan or Aztec art. Now clearly this is art that we find on the pyramids of Mexico, and we have these what look like orbs, okay, and they're connected together. Now I've seen a lot of these orbs together like this, and they actually are connected, okay, as to say they're like they're connected together. And I believe when they do this, they're either interacting with each other or they're absorbing each other's energy by connecting themselves together. When we come around to the front side of this altar, we can clearly see on how this has been carved out. This whole panel here, along with this here, has been carved out. And we find stains, okay, that seems to be dripping off of this altar. Before they did their sacrifice, if you notice, it's right at a dried up riverbed. And what they used to do is they used to purify themselves first by washing themselves in the water before they did the sacrifice on the altar. And according to the legends here, when the sacrificing had stopped, that's when the spirits got uneasy and they got upset. And that's when the land started to dry up. The Hohokam didn't worship the sun, but they felt the sun was a tyrant god. And they felt that if they had stopped the sacrifice, that the sun god would get mad and would send his Valley of the Sun, his sun devils, to come down and to do whatever they wanted to do with the people. Here we find a stick figure guy with 4 arms, and he has this magical staff weapon, if you will. And he's pointing, he's shooting at this serpent in the sky. The sacrificing did stop, and that's when the land, according to the story, became dry and desolate, and that's when the Hohokam ended up disappearing.
Interested me about your work was something I saw on YouTube, where I saw some light form down in that valley down below there, begin to rise up in front of the trees. It kept going up and up and up, and when it got to the tree, I started seeing blinking lights, and then it seemed like it turned into an airplane to me. Yeah. And I'm hopeful that you can fish that picture out for me so that we can share with the people how these things are like chameleons. They actually pretend that there's something they're not. To tell us about the orbs. We haven't talked much about the orbs. I've seen them down in New Orleans. I've seen them in Lafayette. Tell us about these orbs that you're filming almost continuously every night.
Well, they've increased in number. What the ending craft type objects, the bright balls of light that hover in the sky for a long time, those have increased in number not only here but around the world. Downtown Moscow, that kid's filming them. A lot of times they're coming out of a park where there's woods there. They're probably hiding in there. He's confirmed that they start out as these little bubble-sized things also there.
But what impressed me about your stuff is that you shot it in the winter when it looked like it was very cold, because one of the big criticisms of the orb hunters, if you want to call us that, I guess I qualify for that now, but is that, well, no, these are bugs and you're mistaking it. These are anomalies from digital cameras, but this was shot in the winter. And how do you respond to these people that are criticizing you, because I'm sure you get a lot of criticism, when they say these are just merely bugs?
What I would do is I would look up information about bugs in New Jersey in the winter. A really good example is bats hibernate because they don't have a food source in the winter. They eat bugs. So if there's no, if there's no insects or bugs, then, so I mean, that's proof right there. I have several links that state that they will come out during the day if it's warm, above 30 on winter days. But I don't film during the day. I haven't. I wait until it's cold.
One of the films that you sent me was this, it looked like the way it was moving across the screen from right to left. I can't exactly remember the shape of it now, but it seemed like a barbell shape or some kind of, looked like a inchworm. That was really amazing shot. Can you explain that to us or describe it to us?
Well, that's a pretty good description. That's what I called it, the inchworm, because it really did move like an inchworm. And I have no explanation for it. Since then, I've gotten several different types of orbs or nighttime anomalies, creatures. We don't really know what they are.
Explain now.
Well, Lou, what did you think when you saw that particular thing? There's no explanation for it.
No explanation.
See, that's the kind of stuff I like to film, because when people can try to explain it away, well then, who knows, who can say? But when you have no explanation and there's no answers, to me, you have a credible piece of footage. You explained several of these things that I haven't seen yet that you've recorded.
So as I was filming at the Andover airport, something else that was of interest, Lou spotted another craft coming in towards the left. And when it was approaching us, it was over the treetops, very low. We didn't hear any engine noise. But this one looked different. It had 4 white lights in the front. And as it flew over us, you could see the bottom of the craft. And what it looked like to me was 2 boomerangs back to back. So almost like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lights, which isn't, you don't get those type of light, configurations from a normal plane. So, we thought that was kind of strange.
In your view, would you cast them as good or evil?
Not good.
Not good.
Not a good presence. No.
Not a good presence.
Don't like.
So that. Not good is evil.
Yeah, I guess so.
But
yeah.
you don't want to go to the word evil. You're just saying not good.
Yeah.
It's because of the massive amounts that we're seeing sometimes.
It's almost an intuitive thing with me anyway.
Yeah.
My intuitive sense is that they're not good.
On September 10th, there was a huge thunderstorm building all day, and I got the feeling, so I went out and I started taking photos, and on top of one thunderhead, I got a UFO.
Christine photographed this orb during a thunderstorm near the Casa Grande ruins, and it is indeed an incredible photograph. I'm not sure what it is, but it is interesting that she sees these orbs near this sacred site.
I had an orb. It was about that size, a little bit bigger than a basketball. This orb came down from the neighbor's house, down the hill, through the trees, stopped 3 feet from me. Now this thing is rotating. It's going back and forth as if it's scanning me. And I reached out to touch it, and I heard a voice as clear as day say, "Don't touch it or you'll die."
Quietly in total darkness. Then they started hearing the voices of the spirit team speaking through the mediums.
Be quiet, be quiet, be quiet. Marie.
Then the darkened room burst into life.
Isn't that cool? Look at that. That is awesome. Wow.
It's like a firefly. Like fireworks. Wow.
And then it would go up to the rafters of the garage and come down and thunk hard like a big rock hitting the table and then disappear.
Just gone through the table.
As well as these amazing balls of light, furniture in the room began to move.
We had a table in the center of the room that had crystals on it.
It's moving.
The table is indeed levitating.
The table levitated, was turned on its side, and began to spin very rapidly. The crystals never fell off. Even if there hadn't been crystals on the table, it would have been impossible to have turned the table sideways and rotated it with the speed at which it rotated. And we could see this because there were luminescent strips on the table. And it began to spin around actually so rapidly it almost looked like a pinwheel.
In STS-80, when the door wouldn't open, you know, they had the spacewalk scheduled, and the door wouldn't open. I remember watching that and seeing all of this third phenomena, this second space phenomena, but the third phenomena, all around the door. And they were moving the door and trying to get it open. And I'd never seen this phenomena do that before. And then a flight or two later, the astronauts were commenting right on the feed that there was something had come through the door. They were seeing these flashing colored lights.
The light flashing off of the What? I just thought of it in my imagination. Yeah, I saw it too, so it's not. There was two of them. There's another one. What are they? Look at the lights flickering in here. Maybe they're taking pictures. What is this? Is this thing passing in front of the... What are the lights? Which one? Oh, no, I was guessing that one for a second, but I had that one the whole time. Yeah, I was looking at that one too.
Now, the spherical phenomena we've documented and is very solid, isn't the type that would go in there, float around, and them say it's going really fast, we can't see it, and it's all these popping colored lights. That was the first time I got some kind of a feel that the astronauts have seen phenomena 3, the second space phenomena.
And then go off.
The whole time while on board the ship, we seemed to be attracting a great deal of attention and interest. Are the orbs benign or malevolent? This unnerving photograph may give us insight and provide an answer into this troubling question. Here it can be seen of an orb actually fixing itself to the back of Steve's head. Of course, it's only speculation, and as wild as it may seem, the orbs may be some kind of probe system sent out to gather information. In this remarkable picture, our friend George is being spotlighted and singled out as he is marked with a green and red light, first on his arm and then moving up and onto his face.
Room before settling on the main viewing screen. Was the subject of their attention these anomalous objects, seen in close proximity to the Mir space station. Intriguingly, here's the exact same sequence, only this time recorded by Martin Stubbs from NASA's Downlink. Compare the two. These objects are patently of interest to those watching in Russia, so might the same be true of their counterparts at NASA?
Columbia, Houston, we're looking at our payload bay camera, and it looks like a lot of moonlight glinting off the ocean, a whole sparkling bed of diamonds out there. Is that a real picture, or are we just getting some video fuzz?
That's some of the ice crystals that we were dumping out earlier, and yeah, it's a beautiful picture.
That's a great combination of the moonlight and the ice and the clouds.
Yeah, it's a combination of moonlight making those ice crystals sparkle, and maybe as well as some of the sun starting to come up on the horizon.
Well, thanks for the picture.
The Mir space station is now visible on the far left-hand side of the screen, about an inch from the bottom of this particular picture. And there were also a number of shooting stars in that view. The camera has now moved to a point Okay, the Mir space station is the small flashing light in the center, about an inch from the left-hand side of the screen. It's slowly... It is slowly moving closer to the left-hand side and has a very light flashing to it.
We think on the middle of the screen, way to the left-hand side.
kind of articulated mark to look out there? I'm not sure what you're talking about. Never mind. Are we missing something? I don't see anything. Yeah, we think the camera filter came off, Mark. It's about your 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock going away. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Okay?
Discovery, we're sending you an orbiter state vector.
the satellite now. It's like a bright spot at the end of the tether, and on the other end, the low end, there's also a relatively bright spot, which is maybe an accumulation of the tether. And we are downlinking camera Delta now.
Okay, we copied and understand as you're viewing it on the monitor, the satellite is at the top of the tether.
That's correct.
Columbia.
Camera Bravo. We had the camera Bravo constantly on the tether. Unfortunately, we don't see the tip of the boom, but in a few seconds you'll see the tether break. And this one, of course, was not a 10 lead, it just recorded. It could not be bumped either, so it will record steadily the whole break and coil back to the tether.
Copy, Claude.
We go.
Again, this is a view of the satellite.
Well, if it had to break, it did it in the right place.
So. The left-hand corner there, straight as an arrow. So it seems from here.
Yes, sir, we have it. Great picture.
It came and went pretty quick, but that was about as much as we have of it.
Columbia and the satellite now 77 nautical miles apart. Again, that call reporting that the crew can see the tether and see the satellite. That it's beautiful. This view showing the satellite. Again, just moving into sunrise. 81 nautical miles now from Columbia.
You guys getting the image?
Franklin, we see a long line, a couple of star-like things, and a lot of things swimming in the foreground. Can you describe what you're seeing?
Well, the long line is a tether, and there's a little bit of debris that kind of flies with us, and it's illuminated by the sun at such low angle. So there's a lot of stray light, and it's getting washed out quickly, but Claude is trying to do a quick, good job here adjusting the cameras.
Copy that.
Again, that description by the crew, this is the tether in the satellite with approximately 12 miles of tether still attached to it. Columbia and the satellite now just passing over the west coast of northern Africa. The two spacecraft are now 90 nautical miles apart. Controllers for the satellite did have communications with it during the close pass between Columbia and the satellite.
Columbia, Houston, that's a much better view, a lot more contrast visible. And how wide does that tether appear to be? It seems to resemble a much wider strand than we'd expect. Can you describe which way the satellite is visible on that strand?
Satellite now 100 nautical miles.
Charlie, completely unzoomed, and you see the full extent of the tether. I tried to adjust the focus, but I can't get better than that.
Okay, Claude. Thank you.
I'm going to zoom in now.
It should mirror exactly what she's doing on the inside.
Okay. Right now, the handle is installed with the tab in the unlocked position. I'm going to rotate the tab to the locked position now if you're ready.
We're ready.
Okay, we are fully seated in the locked position.
Okay, Tammy, we didn't see any motion on the outside. If you would, go ahead and move it back to the unlocked.
Okay, I'm pulling back to the unlocked, and again, it's only going about 3/4 of the way, will not lie flat, and will not seat, as I mentioned earlier.
And Tammy, if you could, simultaneous with trying to put it in the unlocked position, if you would move the handle a little bit back and forth.
Do that. That can work now, Bill?
Okay, and we can see the handle moving on the outside.
Okay, and but any indication that the lock is being actuated?
No, we can't see any indication of that, and it just may be a bad angle and too dark.
Amidst the 2,500 hours of NASA footage recorded by Martin Stubbs, we have seen countless examples of the spheres, the first space phenomenon. But until now, few have ever come across, least of all seen described, what has been labelled the second space phenomenon. Those that have been left speechless, including eminent scientists, astrophysicists and, as we have learned, highly placed figures within the Canadian Space Agency. Someone who was prepared to comment publicly after being shown less than 5 minutes of the footage was Guido Negro, director of the SETI Radio Telescope at Golden Grave Observatory in Western Australia. What, we asked, did he make of it all?
Well, I was very well impressed, and not only myself, also other people that were looking at. And because this time we are not talking about footage taken off from some home movie camera, but someone that actually was flying a space shuttle. So automatically that gave us the fact that the picture must have been real, genuine. Well, I was very well impressed. And maybe this will prove that there is something else that we are not aware of, at least officially. If the footage that we saw came to be true and really are showing an alien spacecraft or something like that, I say that if there is a cover-up, the people who are doing this cover-up are an enemy of entire Earth race, because we are not children and we must know we must know the truth. It doesn't matter if there are people that are they don't know how to handle the truth. Well, the majority of us will, and if there is a cover-up, I think it's time that the cover-up goes.
Guido could have easily dismissed this sampling as ice crystals at best, or errant nonsense at worst. The fact that he chose to do neither is symbolic perhaps of the potential importance both he and a great many others attach to the footage. The onus surely now rests with people like Guido and others elsewhere in the scientific community to determine whether or not the second space phenomena is a genuine phenomenon. And were that proven to be the case, two burning questions would need to be addressed. Is it extraterrestrial? And is it intelligent? If the answer to either is deemed yes, we could have arrived at an historic moment. For Martin Stubbs, it would be the vindication of what he and millions like him have always maintained, that we are not alone in the universe. His, after all, was a chance discovery, a fleeting glimpse of something that sped across his television monitor that most would fail to notice. He focused on that. He looked for more of the same, under different conditions, and found them in abundance. But found what exactly? Some of the greatest scientific discoveries known to man have often been born from chance events. But is it remotely conceivable that one of the greatest discoveries of all time could have been similarly unearthed by a humble cable TV manager operating out of a small community station in Vancouver? History will surely go on to determine the truth, provided, that is, others within the scientific community are equally prepared to explore the limitless possibilities now before them. But who among them will be courageous enough, ambitious enough, to step forward and examine this evidence? There will be many who will choose to ignore it, blinded by self-imposed scientific dogma and bland indifference towards all who champion the extraterrestrial hypotheses. But those that do express an interest may well find themselves embarking upon one of the greatest scientific treks of all time.
I can't explain it because I don't really think that's my job right now. I'm merely a person who's gathering grains of salt together and putting them in front of you. It's as if you have a carpet and you have a handful of salt and you throw the salt on the carpet. You look and you don't think there's any salt there. But when you gather it up, put it back in your hand, you have something.
You can almost hardly look at them. We've seen them in Mississippi like this, but never
Es correcto, ningún amonestado. Saca al arquero, le pega fuerte a la pelota. Es correcto, ningún amonestado. Saca al arquero.
Sometimes the Beastie Boys are out in space, right? What is that on screen? No astronomer has seen this before. Scientists say they're clueless about what it might be. A meteor, a star, clearly a UFO, as in unidentified. Michio Kaku is a theoretical physics professor and host of the new Science Channel series Sci-Fi Science, Physics of the Impossible, Tuesdays at 10 o'clock, renewed for a second season. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Back on the screen, what is it?
We don't know. We are stumped. Scientists around the world are saying, what the heck is this object? It doesn't fit any of the profiles of the usual suspects. That's the problem.
The usual suspects are comet, meteor,
stars, galaxies, planets.
How about some sort of alien dealio? You buying into that?
Well, you know, the object is about the size of the Rose Bowl Stadium. So it's too small to be a planet or star or a galaxy, and it's not a comet. There's no gas in the tail of that comet. It's not a meteor because it's not inside the Earth's atmosphere. So what is it? We're scratching our head. The only thing we can think of at the present time is a once-in-a-lifetime event, the collision of two asteroids in space. We've never seen that before, creating a starburst of debris. And if that theory is correct, it means with the weeks, the starfish should get bigger and bigger and eventually fade away.
So the asteroid collision, it may have happened before. We just have not seen evidence of it.
This is the first time it's been caught on camera, if it is an asteroid collision.
And what would that mean to folks like you? You would study that to figure out what, Michio?
Well, we realize that asteroids are predictable. We know exactly where they are.
Joe, that's the question. What was it? What did people see? We did receive a lot of reports via our reported feature on our website. A lot of viewers wondering what those lights were over West Oahu. Check out this video from one of our viewers, Mash Hatai. He said he woke up at about 2:30 this morning, get a drink of water, and this is what he saw in the sky. Certainly caught his eye. He took the video from Kaka'ako and thinks the lights were over Central or West Oahu, hard to tell from his vantage point. As you can see, the two bright lights, and then slowly a third light appears. Hatai believes he saw about 8 to 10 of the lights total. He says he believes, at least he thinks, they're probably flares.
It looks like flares. Definitely could have been taken as something more mysterious. But yeah, definitely probably just flares, military flares. Definitely really unusual to see. They were super bright. I guess I couldn't really get the full gist of it with my camera since it was so far away, but it was really, really bright. I mean, I looked out my lanai and it was literally the first thing I saw.
Now, we did check today with the FAA whether they received any reports. They did not. We also checked with the Hawaii Air National Guard, the U.S. Army, Schofield Barracks.
on a roof, really quick, for like an hour maybe, shooting time lapses and footage at night. Just I had my camera, and we look up, and we saw this crazy fucking UFO. So that's what you're gonna watch right now. So look at this. Living. Living. Oh my god. Yeah, there's a wide angle.
to explode. Small, sleek, silver box, ready to explode. Silver box, explode.
Time to ring the alarm. Right now, listen up. That's right. Let's go, yo. Once again, bringing you the raw style attack now. Music on the mic for the white and the black. Listen up, yo. As we move on the track for the white and black.
It's 9:42 and guess what's back? But this time, we're not at the South Point. Get back over the strip. I can't lie, I was standing by my window looking at the lightning and the skies just see if it come back. What do you know? This is like the Phoenix light all over again. These things keep moving from this direction to over here in this direction. Right here at the south point.
I like the way it pans left and right. It seems like this event's actually coordinated to both sides of Vegas. panning, and the event is happening simultaneously. I gotta go to work. I'm sorry, y'all. So this strip is the Vegas Strip. You can see the Rio. I figured what the hell is. I'm trying to think of Palms. It's right between the Rio and Palms. It definitely looks like it's very full of them. You can see that, right? Full of them. And I don't know what that is, but it's crazy.
Of all the various kinds of UFO-related phenomena that have materialized, the so-called light spheres certainly hold a particularly important place. These objects have recently gained greater popularity, thanks in part to the studies conducted by Dr. Elzio Hasselhoff. According to his theory, the light spheres could be the cause behind crop circles, with which they have often been associated. But the spheres began to appear many years ago. During the Second World War, airplane pilots on both sides of the war reported on several occasions that they were flanked by mysterious light spheres during their missions. These spheres could execute maneuvers that would have been impossible for the pilots' airplanes. Their many attempts to outstrip the spheres and avoid pursuit were unsuccessful, and in fact, the spheres often seemed to anticipate the maneuvers of even the most experienced pilots. They appeared in all areas involved in the war, from Europe to the Far East, and it was soon clear that they were not secret enemy weapons. They were given the name Foo Fighters, from a corruption of the French word feu. The objects appeared to be glowing, bright spheres in colors ranging between red, orange, yellow, white, and green. The instruments aboard the planes experienced malfunctioning when these mysterious craft appeared, and once radar technology became operative, the pilots realized that the craft were not detected by their radar devices.
El fenómeno de las esferas se inicia en la Segunda Guerra Mundial.
The phenomenon of flying spheres begins to manifest during the Second World War, during the air attacks among American, English, German, and of course Italian and Japanese air forces.
Cada una de estas fuerzas aéreas tuvo reportes y supo de la presencia.
They all reported the presence of these spheres. Each of them thought they were secret enemies' weapons. And so they were frightened as they moved with great freedom. They could come very close to or move away from aeroplanes, almost passing between them.
The committees established by both the Allies and the Germans to investigate the phenomenon did not officially reach any serious result. Initially, the pilots and their superiors were bewildered and understandably afraid that the spheres were secret enemy weapons. They later became accustomed to this presence, considering it innocuous. According to the pilot's statements, the objects were filmed on several occasions, but the films have since been kept in secret military archives. Footage filmed by random witnesses began to appear in the 1950s. These films showed the objects both alone and in groups, and what we see in the images confirms the statements made by the military pilots. In this film, we see that the cameraman has located a sphere hovering in the sky and an airplane flying nearby. Amongst the first to suggest that these craft may be extraterrestrial was the Polish-American George Adamski, the first and most famous of the contactees, that is, human beings who come into repeated contact with beings presumed to have come from other worlds. Adamski declared that these flying objects were remote-controlled surveying probes that extraplanetary spaceships had launched into Earth's orbit for study purposes. Their shape could be spherical or disc-like, and their size could vary from just a few centimeters to several meters in diameter. He filmed a number of them in flight. Over the course of the years, further films added to the wealth of footage showing these mysterious craft, giving a sense of continuity to their mysterious presence and origins. This film was recorded in January 1976 over Wiltshire during an experimental Concorde flight. It was filmed by British Airways staff working on another plane. The maneuvers that the white sphere executes are perfect examples of what the military pilots had described during the Second World War. The object flies beside the Concorde, glides along its windows, and then, suddenly, darts upward at top speed. In recent years, these probes have come ever closer to cities, at times flying literally right above the rooftops, sometimes even closer to our streets. Amongst the most significant material in which these probes appear is this video recorded in the Capo Redondo area of São Paulo, Brazil on January 2nd, 1998. This video is all the more interesting because the object was sighted very close to an inhabited area. The object, which measures approximately 20 centimeters, made no noise and was found about 200 meters from the young man who witnessed it, Alan Bruno de Oliveira. A remarkable number of witnesses saw the apparatus undergo transformations. This was made possible by its proximity to the witnesses, as well as the duration of the sighting. Over the course of half an hour, the probe completed several transformations above the houses of Capo Redondo. The movements that the little craft made suggest that a form of intelligence is driving it, halting sharply, and suddenly changing direction and speed. It seems to have its own propulsion mechanism. These particular flying objects were also sighted in Mexico. This is one of the first of these fascinating videos. In Mexico City, while a squadron of military helicopters was being filmed during a public show, an apparently metal object unexpectedly passed between the terrestrial craft, to the amazement of the pilots, who later bore witness to the event. This is a solid object. We can see that it stands out clearly against the dark outline of one of the helicopters. It makes a diagonal descending trajectory, and it is most certainly equipped with its own propulsion system, because it flies through the strong vortex of air created by the helicopter's rotary blades without experiencing any disturbance. Moreover, this demonstrates that the object cannot be a sounding balloon, a hot air balloon, or any other kind of gas-filled object. Now, we'll observe one of these light spheres gracefully floating near the slopes of the volcano Popocatépetl, southeast of Mexico City. This document shows another one of these spheres flying at a very low altitude above the Mexican city of Guadalajara. The two videos of this particular type of phenomenon that we're about to show were recorded in Mexico City in 1998, the first just 2 days before the second. In these videos, we see an unidentified flying object in broad daylight, filmed on different days near the same building. In the first video, the object hovers by the side of the building. When the witness zooms in, we can clearly see the remarkable brightness of the rosy color that the sphere emanates. In the second video, recorded 2 days later, we initially see a dark object cross the sky. After a brief stretch, it begins to descend, and we can perceive a change in its brightness. After a slow and indecisive glide, we see it move once again along the side of the same building, shown in the previous video. Then it rises again and slowly moves away. Spherical ships like those we've seen in these videos. The objects seem to be made of metal. Dominguez reported that he watched the objects suddenly become transparent when an airplane approached them, only to return to a metallic state when the earthly craft moved away. One of the first films to show the spheres in a group was made in the United States during the 1950s. The phenomenon reappeared in Mexico in the 1990s and in a rather widespread manner. The large number of objects shown in these videos caused quite a stir. This video was recorded in Mexico City on October the 27th, 1992 by Ulises Trujillo. These formations seem to represent the constellations. In Mexico, they were dubbed flotillas. In this short video, one of the objects increases speed and, flying vertically, passes by a slower object. The presence of light spheres is not limited to the skies over our planet. They have also been sighted in space and filmed during both American and Russian missions. Extraordinary early testimony was provided by the American astronaut James McDivitt. While flying with the Gemini 4 in June 1965, he succeeded in filming a sphere that had approached his ship.
I happened to glance out one time, and there against the black sky was a white object. The geometry of it was sort of like a beer can or a Coke can with a pencil sticking out one of the round edges at about a 45-degree angle.
In this short film, recorded by the astronauts of the Apollo 12, we see a white sphere move quickly above the moon's surface. While the Apollo 17 was landing on the lunar surface, one of these white spheres was filmed as it moved to the side of the earthly space module. During mission STS-51A of the American shuttle Discovery in November 1984, an apparently metal object entered into the video camera's field of vision, making a quick maneuver to the right and then disappearing again. When watching the scene again, we can see how the light and shadows change as the object moves, in correspondence with the overall light and shadows in the scene. This was not the first occasion in which the video cameras installed on the shuttle detected these objects. During mission STS-37 of April 1991, a nearly identical object was filmed. This time, the object didn't disappear straight away, but rather it swayed in front of the video camera long enough for us to observe its features more closely. In a close-up, we can observe a slight swinging motion as the object hovers in front of the lens. We can also evaluate how its shadow changes as it moves, indicating that the object is three-dimensional. The next video is even more extraordinary. It was recorded in August 1991 by a Japanese colleague who accompanied Russian astronauts Volkov and Krikalev on their mission. Initially, the images show the shuttle bringing supplies to the Mir space station. Then, the video camera catches a glowing object that stands out clearly against the dark space outside. The object seems to move, but this is actually due to the unsteady hand of the person recording the video. Later, the footage moves for a few seconds to the Earth's surface. When the camera returns to the glowing object filmed previously, we see that its distance from the planet has decreased, and it is quickly approaching our atmosphere. It then disappears, definitely into the faint light. The maneuver demonstrates that unidentified flying objects enter into our atmosphere. It was the first time such a clear video showing this kind of event had been recorded. Specialists at the Russian Mission Control Center call these phenomena anomalies, a word that actually makes many significant implications. The video we're about to see was recorded by an American researcher who prefers to remain anonymous for security reasons. A UFO research enthusiast who has managed to install 4 powerful satellite dishes in the courtyard of his home. He intercepted transmissions made during the shuttle's joint mission with the Mir space station. The images are astonishing. As the shuttle docks and separates from Mir, several pulsating objects can be seen twirling near the earthly shuttles. The maneuvers that many of these objects make suggest that they are vehicles equipped with an autonomous propulsion system, and that they cannot be man-made satellites, meteors, space debris, ice fragments, or anything of the kind. Their sudden acceleration or sharp halting movements seem to demonstrate that these vehicles may be built with technologies unknown to us. This incredible document is from mission STS-84 of the American space shuttle Atlantis. Here we see the entire filmed sequence. We can make out part of the shuttle's hull and Mir in the distance. As the video camera reduces the field of vision, we note a group of objects moving away from the Russian station. As the camera continues to zoom in, 2 further objects appear, making a diagonal trajectory from the lower right to upper left. The larger object comes rather close to Mir. Then, another sphere emerges on the right, following the same trajectory of the previous ones. Immediately afterward, we note a white sphere in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, followed by other, smaller and faster objects. When this first group is about to move off-screen, the shuttle's video camera moves downward, filming another group of objects that have moved toward Mir in the meantime. As we can see, the largest of the 3 objects halts its course and, accelerating slightly, it changes direction, moving more vertically than before. Finally, a new, glowing, pulsing sphere arrives from below. As soon as it enters the field of vision, it changes direction and speeds up. Immediately afterward, this craft is followed by a smaller object. And then by a second, which flies out from beneath the space station. We'll now see the most important phases of this extraordinary sequence, enlarged and at different speeds, to show the maneuvers more clearly. Naturally, one would think that if these were flying detritus or meteors, their number, frequency and proximity to Mir would be a constant danger to the life of the astronauts on board and to the integrity of the space station itself, such that it would be advisable to return to Earth. If this didn't happen, it may mean that many of the objects we've just seen are of an entirely different nature. According to the most recent scientific research, there is a direct link between light spheres and crop circles. In addition to statements made by various witnesses, there are videos in which we see these little white spheres floating above the fields where these fascinating designs have appeared. Of all the documents showing these objects, the one that has caused the most sensation is the video in which we can see spheres flying over a wheat field. In just a few seconds, a design looking like a snowflake appears in the field. The video was recorded at 5 o'clock in the morning on August the 11th, 1996 by John Wabley, an English crop circle enthusiast near Oliver Castle in England.
This is amazing.
There has been much controversy regarding the authenticity of this video, but careful analysis conducted by the American investigator Jim Diletoso, an expert in computerized video analysis, found no trace of falsification.
The key thing is that if the Oliver's Castle image was made digitally, that word digital says it went into a computer. In the vertical interval signal of the copy that we have, there is no evidence that it was ever digital format. So point of the story is I find no evidence of a hoax in the Oliver's Castle crop circle formation, and I find enough unique and interesting things to think that it very well could be real and should be studied further.
So far, has confirmed that unusual objects are flying in our skies and producing extraordinary phenomena such as crop circles. After the wave of sightings in the 90s, from 2000 onwards, the activity of the mysterious flying spheres has continued. Witnesses with cameras and video cameras have continued to record them. The photographic and filmed evidence on the spheres shows that they can operate in any environment. The documentation from 2000 onwards provides further undeniable evidence. Often, the spheres are seen close to aircraft routes. These photographs taken by the vigilantes Fausto Avaroa and Arturo Robes Gil in Mexico City are an example. Video cameras were also able to record the facts. We can see it in this video by Arturo Robles Gil in Mexico City. In the film, we can clearly see that the flying spheres are not balloons released into the air. In fact, they are not affected at all by the strong turbulence caused by the passing planes.
Del año 2000 al 2008 han pasado 8 años y lo que sí he notado.
From 2000 to 2008, Already 8 years have passed. I noticed that, as time passes by, I've been filming entities and crafts that not only are amazing,
No solo extraordinarias, sino que nos llevan a una enorme reflexión.
but even lead the whole humanity and myself to deeply reflect and question us. Are we visited? Are any beings coming from the stars visiting us? The deliberate movement of these spherical flying objects is clear from these extraordinary images. We can see a metallic sphere slow down and almost stop to let a plane that was crossing its route pass by. Once the plane has passed, the sphere once again starts to move in a more jerky way. These continual changes in speed almost seem to be a demonstration for the benefit of Hill's camera. In this other video by Arturo Robles Hill, we can see another example of the incredible technical skill of the spheres. At times, the spheres follow the planes. The dynamics of the film seem to indicate that the people on board don't realize what is happening. The people who study these phenomena don't really know what these spheres are, what they're for, or who made them. But it is obvious that whoever it is, they are increasingly less interested in hiding them.
Estas gentes, sean las que sean, están viniendo.
I think that these beings, whoever they are, show themselves all the time. We often see them.
Eso nos está enseñando.
This is probably because they are teaching us to become accustomed to their presence, not to be afraid.
Al contrario, yo creo que están dejando ver para.
On the contrary, I believe that they show themselves so that soon, perhaps quite soon,
En no mucho tiempo se haga un contacto.
there will be a direct contact and they will be able to show themselves more clearly. As we can see from the images, at times the objects are bright and luminous, at other times they are metallic and opaque. This is clear evidence of their multiform nature, the manifestation of a technology that is still beyond our understanding. These photos, taken in Mexico, show a group of metallic spheres in flight. They are amongst the clearest pictures ever taken. The author is the engineer Franklin Rojas, and the photos were taken in 2006. The similarity with the spheres photographed by the Hispanic-American contactee Paul Villa in New Mexico in 1966 is extraordinary. Curiously, exactly 40 years have passed between the two series of photos. The movement of this sphere is another clear example of the ease with which they maneuver in flight. It's difficult to say that the object is a balloon. The difference in the movement is obvious. Its flight is controlled and not caused by the wind. When it stops almost completely, it's even more difficult to say that. When it's filmed at the same time as balloons, the difference is even more evident. Salvador Guerrero has been a vigilante for many years.
and he is the author of numerous very important films, which are now part of the history of the UFO phenomenon.
Y es una satisfacción.
Why do I enjoy it? Not because I want to be the best, but one of the many people who have proof of the UFO phenomenon,
Que está la expectativa.
who are waiting for the UFO to show themselves. There are people who film birds, who film hurricanes, and people who film UFO, unidentified objects.
Often the spheres appear in formations, sometimes numerous, and it was Salvador Guerrero who filmed this document, 6 spheres in a J shape flying over Mexico City.
When I come across these objects, it is very exciting for me to be able to film them, not only to talk about them, but to be able to record them on video using modern technology.
On June the 24th, 2005, in the town of Jalapa, in the Veracruz region of Mexico, the governor, Don Fidel Herrera Beltran, is about to take part in an official ceremony. Policemen, journalists, and the public are all present. Suddenly, above them, they see the spheres of light. The governor also sees them and shouts, "It's the Martians!" Certainly, amongst the phenomena linked to the spheres, one of the most spectacular is the flotillas. The films by Arturo Robles Gil are undeniable evidence. The formations continue to appear. There are more and more of them, and they are increasingly frequent. The contactees have often said that the flying spheres are remote-controlled survey probes, but also have controls and monitoring equipment for flying saucers.
El fenómeno de las esferas es
The phenomenon of spheres is strictly connected with the unidentified flying objects.
Tenemos videos, incluso en Italia, Antonio Ursi.
In Italy, Antonio Ursi filmed unidentified flying objects,
donde se pueden ver esferas,
in which we can see spheres alongside these spaceships.
In the film that Ursi took on December the 3rd, 2008, at a certain point, we can clearly see these spheres alongside what is obviously a flying saucer. It's a dark color, which makes us think it must be metallic. It's not the first time that Ursi has recorded this phenomenon. In June 2004, he filmed a sphere near a silvery disc. Ursi has also filmed single flying spheres. This video was taken on May the 24th, 2009. The sphere is flying over the blocks of flats in Cinisello, Balsamo. Just when it goes out of sight, Antonio, his wife Simona, and her little sister run to another window of the flat to be able to observe it a little longer.
Guarda, guarda là. Questo è bello, eh? Hai visto roba?
Ah, l'ho preso.
Ursi follows the sphere until it disappears into the distance.
Faccio il frame la differenza con l'aereo.
The next images of an airplane show the obvious difference between the two vehicles. In July 2009, Ursi was in Argentina for a series of conferences. During a visit to Capilla del Monte, an area where UFOs are often seen, he filmed this sphere with unusual characteristics.
È una palla grandissima, bella. Guarda.
Ah, ce l'ho visto, ce l'ho visto, ce l'ho visto.
Bueno, bueno, bueno.
His wife Simona and other friends are with him. The film becomes even more interesting when the sphere goes behind the bushes. At the end of the video, Ursi also films the other witnesses.
Mira,
Detrás del árbol.
mira dietro, Simo, è fantastico.
Retrocedimos para acá. ¿La planta? Iba pasando detrás de la ventana.
No, è muy linda, È una palla grossa, enorme, Fermi? Los testigos.
Hemos observado también, por ejemplo, cuando hay flotillas, cuando hay...
We also observed that in flotillas with hundreds or thousands of objects, when they are very close one to each other, they move in a swinging way as if connected by a magnetic force.
Hemos observado las esferas.
We've seen these spheres moving forward, thousands of them, all at the same time and following the same direction. We sighted them going into the clouds.
En nubes, dentro de una nube. Las hemos observado, pues realmente incluso, de acuerdo al testimonio de...
According to several witnesses, they've been sighted even inside homes.
Todo ello me hace pensar.
All this makes me think about it as a phenomenon to investigate.
Me parece a mí que no son tripuladas.
It seems to me that these spheres have no pilot on board. I believe they are used sometimes individually, sometimes in groups, to make observations and specific investigations.
The appearance of the EBANIs, which is the Spanish acronym of Unidentified Aerial Biological Entities, the incredible snake-like flying objects, has complicated the incredible phenomenon of flying spheres even further. The first sightings date from the 90s. Since the year 2000, they have continued to appear, giving the scholars a really difficult problem to solve and, above all, to accept. In fact, the phenomenon is completely beyond our recognized parameters for aircraft technology. With the EBANIs, the boundaries between biological nature and technological nature seem to blend.
What is an EBANI? It's an unidentified aerial biological entity, which is to say that it behaves as if it were a living being. These EBANIs move as if they were enormous worms in an organic way. There are some really exceptional films of these objects.
In August 2007, Arturo Robles Hill filmed a spectacular EBANI as it emitted the spheres. As the object moves into the clouds, we can see how high it is, and consequently, just how huge it is. Once again, on November the 17th, 2008, Hill filmed another EBANI emitting spheres. This time, the apparatus is an irregular shape, and it clearly shows the polyhedric and multiform nature of these flying biological entities. These films suggest that the EBANIs are a sort of aircraft carrier that transports the spheres.
Pienso que estos cuerpos enormes de gusanos.
I think that these enormous bodies, like snakes, are the way in which the spheres are transported and moved around.
Es mucho más fácil poder mover a un centenar o...
It's much easier to move hundreds or thousands of spheres in a solid, closed body rather than individually.
Entonces, yo pienso que...
So, I think that the EBANIs are the origin of the phenomenon of the flotillas and of the flying spheres themselves.
Often, the Abanis are accompanied by just one sphere that the researchers call the century.
En diferentes ocasiones han sido grabadas juntas.
In several occasions, the Abanis and spheres have been filmed together, and we also observe that in many cases they are accompanied by a great sphere, a royal craft that's always there. I don't know why, but we can see it in many videos.
At other times, they appear together with the flotillas. As we can see in this Mexican film from 2007, we can see the phenomena progressively taking shape in this film by the Mexican Octavio Fernandez. Octavio also filmed these Abanis in various colors. At times, the Abanis, like the spheres, cross the routes of aircraft.
Abro mi toma. Mira, el avión pasó cerca. ¿Te diste cuenta más al frente?
Considering the incredulity and the amazement of the researchers themselves, it is understandable that the public thinks of the Abanis as balloons floating through the air. Everything we've seen about the flying spheres already seems complex and incredible. But in May 2009, the Mexican skywatcher Alfredo Carrillo filmed a phenomenon that has never been seen before. All the objects are dark-colored. The witness is filming against the sun. But there are more surprises to come. The event is also being filmed at the same time by another witness, the Mexican Pedro Hernandez. Initially, Hernandez, just when he's filming an aircraft flying past, sees the same flying object that Carrillo has filmed, but with the sunlight at his back. So the objects are illuminated, and the video gives a better image of the spheres than we've ever seen before. Probably, Hernandez is closer to the phenomenon he is filming. The object starts to slow its spinning motion, and then the incredible scene continues. Slowly, the flotilla begins to form. When the film ends, Hernandez comments on the incredible scene he's just witnessed.
Here behind me there were UFOs moving around, really beautiful. They were yellow, they were really beautiful, and they were here, just behind me.
Comparing the two videos of Carrillo and Hernandez, we can clearly see that it really is the same phenomenon. The statements by witnesses, the investigations, the exceptional images leave little room for theories of fraud, mass hallucinations, or pranks. It is really difficult to think that the spheres are not real or the result of intelligent life.
Las esferas son un fenómeno inteligente. No me cabe la menor duda. Y nosotros hemos acumulado mucho.
The spheres are an intelligent phenomenon, I have no doubt, and we have accumulated lots of film where we can see this intelligent movement. They are part of a project that is even greater than they are. That's why we should believe that we are dealing with a phenomenon that shows the interest towards and the investigation upon us, human beings.
Perhaps one day this reality will be accepted by the authorities, or perhaps it will be the phenomenon itself that forces us to accept it without waiting for human decisions. It wouldn't be the first time. In the past, events have changed human history. Will we be taken by surprise this time too?
So Will committed suicide.
Yes.
Your credibility, how do you expect me or the audience to believe anything you're saying if you actually hallucinated the murder of your husband?
They weren't hallucinations. I just couldn't. It can be difficult to face the truth. And with Will, that's how I dealt with it. And no matter what you believe, the recordings do not lie. We're talking about things that aren't normal. Is dead. Back is broken. And Ashley, she's still gone. These are hard facts.
They do appear to be.
No, God damn it, they are. You can sit there and speculate, but I have to keep hope alive. I have to believe in what we're doing. My story. That it will help. I have to believe that she's still alive somewhere, that she's safe. I have to believe that there's a chance that I'm gonna see her again. Hold her again. Hear her voice. I just want my little girl back. She's all I have.
Let's stop there. Dr. Tyler, we're done for the night.
The most controversial subject we investigate on Sightings is alien abduction. More and more seemingly credible people are coming forward, claiming that they've been abducted, probed, and manipulated by aliens. And now there's a new pattern developing. Supposed abductees are returning from their experiences with a cautionary message for us all.
There's a new, frightening chapter in the abduction story. Many abductees are claiming that their alien captors send them home with apocalyptic predictions about life on Earth. It's a terrifying conclusion to an already horrible ordeal.
I'm on my back on the bed, and she's at the foot of my bed, and she's doing something to me.
We had this flashback of being on this table, being surrounded by these beings.
I don't know what she was doing. She had some sort of an instrument in her hand.
Little gray guys, big dark eyes, and one of them's putting a needle in my neck.
Until recently, the story would end there. But now abductees are returning with more than horror stories. They feel they are intergalactic messengers who must deliver dire predictions. This new mission intrigues Harvard professor John Mack. This Pulitzer Prize-winning psychiatrist at Cambridge Hospital is now treating people he calls experiencers. In his new book, Abduction, Mack presents 13 case histories.
I thought this is crazy. I mean, I thought this is not possible. I'd seen many, many cases and worked for 2 years before I said, look, there's a mystery here. I can't explain this. There's something like what they're saying seems to be happening.
After endless fake ghost TV shows, here at last is a documentary that presents the real evidence. Spurred on by the photographic experiments, the Skoll Group began a series of video experiments called Project Alice, after Alice through the looking glass. Their ambition was nothing less than to try and capture moving images sent from the spirit world. The Skoll Group insists that instructions on how to position the camera and mirrors came from their spirit communicators. They were told to set up a video camera in the dark cellar, aim it at a pair of mirrors so that it could only film its own viewfinder. While it was recording, nothing unusual was seen. But when the tape was played back, these remarkable pictures appeared.
We had images on the video, sometimes of what looked like a tunnel of light. Other times, spirit faces were coming towards us. Sometimes what appeared to be a doorway moving.
Skeptics claim these images were created by video feedback, occurring when a camera records its own output. But scientists have ruled this out. Video feedback doesn't produce this kind of result. As to what these extraordinary pictures represent, we can only guess, since their meaning was never explained to the Skoll Group. This video, also totally unexplained, appears to be a ghostly face with moving eyes. Later, a few video experiments were attempted in full light. Again, nothing unusual was seen during the recording. However, on playback, this unworldly figure appeared. But was it possible for the Skull Group to have faked these images? Not according to the investigator who monitored these experiments, Swiss lawyer and businessman Dr. Hans Scher.
There's absolutely no possibility that this film could have been prepared before, because I selected one of the video films which was in its original packaging, which I opened. I took the film out, I signed the film, and I put it personally in the video camera.
He inserted it into the camera. We never touched at any stage the camera or the film.
When we played the film, it showed at the beginning a number of bubbles of various colors.
But there was one particular bubble on there in which the face of a person appeared, and it was a man with spectacles.
Although Dr. Scher did not recognize this face, the Skull Group thought it might have belonged to someone who was trying to communicate with him from the afterlife.
They just wanted me really bad. I remember I was just sort of laying in my bed, and then there's now a loud noise. And I hate the sound of the noise. It's like almost like spirits or demons kind of screaming at you. So then you hear it's almost like a buzzing that starts, and then I can sense a presence standing over me, just standing right here next to me on my bed, standing over me. Then you hear this sound. It feels like somebody's screaming right in your ear. Like they're right here and they're screaming. And I can sense the color red, as if they were wearing something red, like a dark red robe of some kind, or something red. And I tried to look at the face, but I couldn't. Like every inch, every centimeter feels like a ton. And so I'm trying to move, and I want to see it, and I'm straining to look up. I could barely move my head. It was almost like going like this, and then I think I said something. I just said, I remember this guy, his name is Jesus, and I'm gonna use his name right now. And I'm gonna say, just in Jesus' name, you get out, or I said something to that effect.
Jesus' name. Jesus' name. Get out.
And I suddenly sensed that the demons, or the thing that was happening to me, that evil presence, just left, gone. And it was amazing. It was like a feeling of victory. Yeah.
And they never came back?
They never came back. I wasn't even a Christian then. I actually abhorred religion. I didn't want... Some lady a long time ago told me I should marry a Christian man, and I just laughed in her face. Anyways, I learned very late in my life that the name of Jesus has power, and that's how I became a Christian.
So, do you not believe in the Wikipedia definition of sleep paralysis?
No, that would be sort of like I guess the worldly term like what people would deem as something that's a physiological response, that it's like a natural thing that happens with the body, but I don't think that's true. I do think that it's something to do with the spiritual realm, and it's closely tied with possibly demonic activity.